We finally reached Kuriway Town for the next Pokemon Showcase. But who won that Princess Key? Pokemon! 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 Hello everyone, I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome to another Pokemon XY&Z anime discussion. Today we're going to review the showcase that just recently came out in just like couple of hours ago, like 10 hours ago I think, something like that. Anyway, let's jump right into this review because there's a lot to go over in this particular video and not just about the Pokemon Showcase. Although the majority of this video will probably be about the showcase. So anyway, I've got a lot of notes here, a lot of things to discuss, so let's jump right into this. Okay, so in the beginning, the group reaches Kuriway Town, and Serena seemingly already knows that there's a Pokemon Showcase there. I'm sure it was off screen that she found out about Kuriway Town, but you know it's actually hilarious that we had to wait until I think it was the second preview, the Pokenechi preview of this particular episode before we found out the name of the town or city that this particular Pokemon Showcase was taking place, and it was Kuriway Town. And you know, I think I did speculate this before, and it did make a lot of sense, and you know, because it seems like they're doing town after town, city after city. So yeah. So anyway, that's that. So in the beginning of this particular episode, after that, is just set up for the Pokemon Showcase. So and helping Eevee overcome its anxiety and fear of having to perform in front of a large audience and stuff. And of course, we get Palermo or Yashio showing up, and she sees Serena, and she remembers Serena on the dock cutting her hair and stuff. And of course, then we saw scenes of Jessie getting excited about the Pokemon Showcase. So then, of course, it's the night, and we get Eevee who goes outside, and I think it's like a crescent moon happening outside, I think, or whatever. And Eevee is just being a little worried. Then we see Pancham and breaks in, and then Serena comes out and comforts it. And then, of course, we get a scene of Jessie, James, and Meowth breaking into the showcase hall, I believe, or yeah, and of course they are trying to find out what the theme performance is so they can get it all discovered and get ready prepared before anyone else so they have an advantage. So they're trying to cheat basically. So then of course Meowth makes some mistakes and throws a book at a alarm. It goes off, everyone freaks out. But then there's this page that has this weird shape on it, this weird design on it, and I think it was James that suggests that it was Ekans trying to eat a Mamoswine. And it was definitely Ekans because Ekans is the only one of that line that has a yellow rattler. Arbok has that hood, but it doesn't have a rattler attached to it. So yeah, it was Ekans definitely. So, but then Jessie realizes what it could potentially be, and of course that's the end of that. So then in the beginning, in the morning or during the day or something of that nature, that's when they go to the showcase hall, and that's where they meet up with Ninny, who apparently caught another Smoochum. Well, okay, it's not another Smoochum, but it's a Pokemon that looks exactly like Smoochum, and that shares a typing with, and of course, she is the proud owner of a Gothita. You know, at first I was like, oh, hey, Ninny has a Gothita, and then I remembered Smoochum, and then I'm like, oh, she has a Gothita. But anyway, yeah, at least she has another Pokemon that we've seen, so it's not just Farfetch'd and Smoochum. So, of course, then the showcase starts, like, pretty much right after that, and Monsieur Pierre says that the theme performance is Poffin making, a making Poffin, at least it, it's like in the, like, have you ever gone to a, I think it's some kind of Asian restaurant of some sort where they cook your food, but they do it in a fancy way where they like flip the knife up and then they chop and they do some sort of orchestra. But that's kind of like what it is. It's not like uh the first Pokemon showcase that Serena won. I can't remember where that was from. It was near Lavers, I believe, and that was when they made poffins and there was just to judge this. But this was just about making poffins and showing the design. It wasn't about making the tastiest. It was just about the aesthetic appeal to poffins. So of course, but unfortunately, that means that Jessie was unable to cheat her way to victory because she misidentified the design on the piece of paper. So of course, it is interesting that Jesse actually needed to cheat to get past the theme performance and go on to the free performance, but whatever, I guess that's what Jesse does. So anyway, oh, and a side note, and I will talk about this later, but that key, that princess key, that key is fancy as hell, and I will come back and talk about it. But yeah, that is one fancy key. So anyway, Jesse and Nini and Serena managed to pass the theme performance. I think technically Nini probably had the best, most exciting pot looking Poffin, but then of course Jesse had the unique Poffin performance and stuff, where she used Meowth and stuff, and Meowth used his like coin to like make a design in the chocolate syrup, and then of course there was this like chocolate, there was this like egg, I think that had chocolate in it or something, and of course there was this chocolate coin on the Poffin. So Nini, I think, had the tastiest looking Poffin. Jesse had the most unique Poffin performance, but Serena had the most catchy Poffin making performance because not only was she making a Poffin and it was a modest looking, good tasting Poffin, but of course we had Pancham like banging on the pans and making music, and then it was definitely a performance. Serena definitely pulled off a performance, so that's all why they all passed, I believe. Nini had the tastiest looking Poffin. Jessie had the most unique Poffin to create in the way that she did it, but I think Serena had the best Poffin making performance because it was really fun and interesting. But uh, I- just like the first Pokemon showcase, this was actually decided by the audience as well. So there was a meter that needed to be filled, and they had to reach that particular mark before they could pass on. And so, but I think unlike other Pokemon showcases, well, at least this was very noticeable in this one, because I can't remember if this happened with the other Pokemon showcases. Although this may have applied to Coumarine as well, maybe, but this was very noticeable that there was a massive gap between the theme performance and the free performance, that they actually took a break and the performers can go ahead and figure out what they wanted to do for their free performance, and of course Serena was with Ash, Clement, and everybody except Nini, and of course, so yeah, the free performance was taking place at night. So of course Eevee's a little anxious because it's almost time for Eevee to perform, and Eevee is so anxious and nervous that it can't eat its food. So Clement suggests that they add citrus and orange berries, I believe that's what they were, to make the food more exciting to eat, so it's a little bit more appealing to Eevee, because Eevee has enough problems to think about that it just can't eat normal plain Pokemon food. So it needs something a little bit more exciting so it can divert some of its focus away from the anxiety that it's feeling. So of course then we get into the Pokemon showcase, and Nini does some weird dress up with her Pokemon and ends up floating in the air, and her performance was kind of basic, and I didn't really like it all that much. I mean, there was some appeal to it, but it was just kind of there. It was like it, I feel like with the montages that we saw of other performances, I feel like the other performers did a little bit better, but I guess there was some charm to Nini's performance, but I personally didn't like it that much. Jessie's performance, on the other hand, while similar to Nini's in that Nini was kind of a focus in her performance, Jessie had a very interesting balance towards showcasing or performing with her Pokemon and herself. Um, she had Gurgeist using, I believe it was Leech Seed, to get her up in this like kind of throne or whatever, and of course she used Wobbuffet's counter to spin. This is different than the appeal in contest in 4th generation, I believe, where Jesse just in the Wallace Cup, I believe, just ran towards Wobbuffet and bounced off Wobbuffet and did a spin and jump and landed on Wobbuffet. This one was done more elegantly, and what happened was when Jessie hit Wobbuffet's counter, she spun, and I believe Gurgeist caught her, and then of course there was that whole using Shadow Ball and making fireworks again. So I really like Jessie's performance in this particular episode. And of course, Serena, who is surprisingly always last for some odd reason. You'd think she'd be first, but surprisingly she was last. I don't think there's ever been a performance where she was always first. It's kind of weird that she's always last, I guess. So in the beginning of the performance, everything seems to be going good. We get a fiery type of dance for Eevee, and of course Eevee lands on Braixen's twig, and it seems like it's some sort of semi-finale, but then of course Eevee gets overwhelmed by the audience cheering for the performance and gets a little anxiety that Eevee trips and falls to the ground, similar to what happened with Braixen when it was a Fennekin. But the difference is Serena didn't grab Eevee and freak out or whatever. She just knew something happened and she took it in stride, and then they managed to finish off pretty strong and get over it and finish off the performance. And as an interesting note, Palermo didn't really do anything in this particular episode, but the one interesting thing is that she took a interest in Serena's performance and what she did, more so than any other character, any other performers. And the interesting thing is that even in the theme performance, Palermo didn't actually do anything. Not even when Serena was just doing whatever. We did see Palermo during that moment, but she had like a not impressed look. But it seemed like Palermo was more interested in Serena's free performance, and that's where we got all that and stuff. So yeah. So the winner of the Princess Key is... And the winner is, we will find out after these commercial breaks. If you're hungry and you want food now, call... No, I'm just kidding. So the winner is Musavi, or Jessie. Jessie has finally won a Princess Key, which is pretty cool and awesome. And it seems like she's going to end up Princess Key, and I think Nini already has 2 Princess Keys as well. Like Shauna and Serena have 2 Princess Keys, so it's really nice that Jessie has a Princess Key now. So it's like she's getting ready. I don't know what this means, but I will discuss a little bit after this particular moment. So there's a couple of notes here I want to talk about in regards to Jessie winning. So we have this first note here. I want to give kudos to the writers and the animators. I honestly could not figure out who was going to win at all, even with Eevee's mistake, and you thought, oh hey, Serena's definitely not going to win now. Even after that, because of that strong finish with Serena and the confidence that Serena had, and Serena brushed off Eevee's mistake like it was nothing, like it was acceptable, and just move on. we still didn't know who won the Pokemon Showcase until Monsieur Pierre said, "And the winner of this contest Pokemon Showcase is Musavi." And of course, so it was really nice. We didn't even see the points. We saw all these points gathering, but it was pretty mixed and stuff. We didn't even see the points filling up their little holographic Princess Key uh, meters or whatever, the keyhole with the princess key. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. Thank you animators for not showing the points. So thankful, it's really nice that they really made this a surprise. I mean, in hindsight and looking back, it kind of made obvious sense why Jessie did win the princess key, but at the time before, it's like, who was going to win? I mean, you would think, oh, Serena's not going to win because of Eevee tripping, but then they finished off pretty strong and they managed to overcome that little incident. And it seemed like, well, even despite that mistake, everyone was liking Serena's Pokemon Showcase the most. So it's like, maybe it cost her a couple of points, but she still could have come out on top, especially since the other Pokemon Showcases, um, her princess keyhole was like filled up more so than any other, and it was like everything was going to Serena. So even if Serena didn't get as many points, she still could have won this particular showcase. So it was nice that we didn't know who was going to win this Pokemon showcase up until, Monsieur Pierre said who won the showcase. So anyway, back to my discussion on the Princess Key. Are you kidding me right now? This thing almost made me believe that Serena was going to win. Because, like I said, that key is just fancy as all heck. That key is when that's the key you award that says, "Hey, congratulations, you're going to master class." That's how fancy this key is. And in my personal opinion, it is the best princess key design that we have seen yet within the actual Pokemon anime. I mean, look at Serena's two princess keys. We have a sapphire bow tie pinwheel key and a semi hourglass looking thing with a mustache key. And then, of course, there's the Coumarine emerald heart with a Christmas themed ribbon decoration on it. And they're all very basic. And then, of course, we have this particular princess key that Jessie won, and it's a crown on top of what I'm assuming is some sort of jewel or gem or whatever that's surrounded by what looks like flower petals, and it kind of looks like a flower. But then, of course, it goes down, and there's like these loops that kind of look like mug handles. And then, of course, we have this like ribbony kind of design, and then it has like two blue spheres on it. And I'm like, wow, that Princess Key. When I saw that, I was like, when I saw that key, even though I didn't know who was going to win, when I saw that key, I thought, yep, Serena's going to win, because there's just no way that they're going to make that kind of key design and not give it to Serena. And and then Jessie won, and I'm like, oh, well, I mean, sure. I mean, Jessie deserves to win a key if she's going to actually be in the master's class, but not that kind of key. You can't give us basic design princess keys and then give us this marvelous, extravagant princess key and then be like, "Oh, hey, Jessie, here you go. It's your first key. Have fun." And I'm like, really? Well, I mean, is that what determines who wins? Jesse's always going to get these fancy keys, like the Wallace Cup ribbon was one of the fanciest ribbons that we've seen within the anime, and it was a lot bigger and more extravagant than most ribbons. So, and then there's this key, and then they just give it to Jesse, and I'm like, well, I guess the next basic princess key we're gonna get in a showcase, I'm guessing that's gonna be Serena's princess key, because apparently the animators can't be darned to actually give her a decent princess key. So anyway, enough of that. I can understand why some people might not like it, but really, That was like the best Princess Key that we've seen so far, in my opinion. So let's move on. So anyway, Jessie ends up fantasizing about becoming the Callous Queen and everyone bowing to her. James, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Gurgeist are like, be humble, Jessie, be humble. But I guess since she won for the first time in like first time ever in regards to a Pokemon showcase, I think she deserves a little gloating, just a little bit. So then anyway, Nini says goodbye to Serena, and of course then there's Eevee being sad because Eevee thinks that it lost the showcase for Serena. At least I think that's what Eevee was thinking, but everyone's trying to cheer up Eevee, and they keep making a note that Eevee did remarkably well despite the little mistake that Eevee made, and that was falling off the twig, Braixen's twig, and falling to the ground. And then, of course, everything. Then Eevee got up and picked up itself up and stuff. So, despite all of the everything that happened, Eevee has definitely progressed, and despite the little hiccup that happened, Eevee has definitely developed quite a bit since its capture episode. So, I'm guessing the reason why Serena did win the showcase is probably obvious, and it was because of Eevee's hiccup, and it kind of makes sense why Serena wouldn't win 3 times in a row, and so, yeah. That's probably why Serena lost, because they didn't want Serena to win 3 times in a row. They didn't want Serena to win constantly. If Serena is probably because of Yashio's interest in Serena, even despite her hiccup in this particular, despite Eevee's hiccup in this Pokemon Showcase, Yashio slash Palermo is still very interested in Serena. So it seems like Serena is potentially might end up being the Pokemon Showcase. Now, before I finish this little note off, I don't know if Serena's going to win the next Pokemon Showcase or it's going to be Serena or I mean, or Jessie. And I think that maybe Jessie will win another Princess Key off screen. Well, it might be on screen, like her ribbon in that one particular episode where Jessie won a ribbon when Johanna was the judge, and Dawn and Ash and Brock were teaching kids about Pokemon. So yeah, it's kind of uncertain, and but hopefully we'll get some previews to this show. So it really is uncertain what's going to happen. So anyway, Eevee, it's time to return to your Pokeball. Now, excuse me while I drop kick Eevee's Pokeball into the lake. Click. All right. Alright. Noibat, come here. Come here, Noibat. You can come out now. Okay, only kidding about kicking Eevee's Pokeball into a lake. So anyway, that's pretty much the end of the episode. So let's move on to some of the other things that I have to say in this particular video. So, first things first, almost all of Team Flare will show up, with the exception, of course, technically Alon. Alon isn't technically a part of Team Flare, but he works with Team Flare, so I don't think he's technically a Team Flare member, but he's a begrudging, unknowing ally to Team Flare, but he's not going to show up. I mean, he could still show up, but he just doesn't have a voice role. So... Oh, and yes, Noibat is listed for this episode, but I'm honestly not expecting much from Noibat as the usual. So, on to the preview. So in the preview, Puny-chan finally reaches Terminus Cave, and we see a chamber where we saw Zygarde 50% in the first episode of the XY&Z series, but nothing was there. Of course, it was just empty, but we did have those glowing waters and stuff or whatever. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but probably not, because I think the summary of that came recently, but Puny-chan can apparently turn invisible, by the way. But I don't think we really see it in this particular episode. But anyway, then we see Ash's Greninja when Puny-chan jumps out of Bonnie's arms, and then of course after that we get Bryony's B-Sharp, which is battling against Ash's Greninja, which is pretty hilarious since, you know, Ash's Frogadier was battling against another person's B-Sharp and evolved into Greninja because of it. So yeah, I guess despite the fact that it wasn't Team Flare that was in the Ninja Village arc trying to capture Puny-chan, it seems that Greninja is going to be battling against B-Sharp, Bryony's B-Sharp anyway. So then, of course, we also get Celosia's Drapion, who is attacking Puny-chan, but then, of course, we get a scene of Pikachu and Greninja potentially battling against Drapion, so maybe that's the thing. So, and it is kind of disappointing because I was hoping we would also get Hawlucha, since Hawlucha hasn't really done anything lately, so it could use some pretty decent screen time and use attacks and stuff or whatever. Of course, and then one of the final scenes within the preview, the TV Tokyo YouTube preview, since I don't remember what the sponsored extra scenes were in when I watched the episode, but the last scene was Puny-chan turning into Zygarde 10% form. And of course, Team Flare are dead. Yeah, they're just not going to survive. So anyway, here are some of the things that I hope that are going to be in this particular episode. One, Greninja kicks some butt. I'd like some Greninja. I'd like a little bit of Greninja focus before we get depressing Ash Greninja arc where they finally master the Ash Greninja form. So, but I don't expect Ash Greninja to be in this form. It seems like it's too action packed to throw in a scene, but they might actually mention it within the episode potentially. I don't know if they will or not, but I guess we'll have to see. So, two, I'm also hoping that Noibat will use a move that's not called Supersonic. I don't expect a lot from Noibat in this episode because it wasn't in the preview. Maybe it'll be in the Pokénechi preview. I'll probably make a Twitter note mentioning the Pokénechi preview, but I'm probably not going to make a video on it. But I'm hoping maybe something like Hurricane or Heat Wave, maybe. You know, just some attack where it attacks something. The best thing that can happen for Noibat in this episode is that it uses attacks Ash is using it to battle, but Bryony or Celosia or somebody use their Pokemon. Maybe even Manectric. I think Aliana in the games actually has a Manectric, and a Manectric is listed for this episode, and all the Team Flare scientists are showing up, even Xerosic. So if Aliana is going to show up with her Manectric, it's possible that Manectric might use an electrical attack and knock out Noibat, which would probably be the best thing that could happen for it. That it uses some moves, it attacks, battles, but ultimately gets defeated. So it gets like a semi kind of battle. Not really an official battle with like a versus screen, but you know, just a what are those called? Skirmish, basically. A skirmish against Team Flare, so that would be really helpful for Noibat. I'm also hoping that Hawlucha also appears. Hawlucha would probably be beneficial to appear here because it really hasn't appeared in a lot. I can't remember the last episode that it showed up in. My best guess would be the first episode of XY&Z, but that's a pretty far distance away. So I'm hoping that it shows up sometime soon again. So anyway, now, on to the final thing I hope for. While I'm okay with Puny-chan becoming 10% form and ultimately defeating Team Flare, and that's what ultimately might end the episode as Team Flare licks their wounds and mentions this to Xerosic and Lysander, and probably Lysander sending out Alon after Puny-chan, which is probably going to happen. And speaking of which, if that does happen, considering I expect Ash to lose to Alon, I'm wondering how Alon is actually going to get Puny-chan, or maybe Alon actually discovers something and realizes that Team Flare and Lysander aren't who they think they are. I'm not really sure what's going to happen in that particular potential episode, but anyway, while I'm okay with Puny-chan doing all this, what I don't want is Ash and company to suffer and not do so well against Team Flare that Puny-chan has to come in and turn into 10% form. What I want is primarily Puny-chan to be alone, almost alone. There is one thing that I want to note, but primarily alone, Puny-chan alone fighting against Team Flare, starting to become 10% form. Ash and company show up and they see 10% form knocking out Team Flare and blasting it off and stuff or whatever. However, there is one little extra note that I want to say is, and if there will be bonus points given to the writers and the animators if even though I don't necessarily want this, but if Bonnie does get hurt because of Team Flare, what I want is Puny-chan to change to protect Bonnie so that so Bonnie could at least be with Puny-chan during this whole thing, but what I want is, of course, a nice moment after all Bonnie is taking care of Puny-chan, so to show the bond going both ways as opposed to Bonnie caring about Puny-chan, what it would be interesting is if, even though I don't necessarily want Bonnie to get hurt because that'd be an awful thing to hope for, but if Bonnie does get hurt, I would want Puny-chan to get mad and angry at Team Flare, change into 10% form, and protect Bonnie. That's at least what I would want. That'd probably be the best scenario, even though I don't necessarily want Bonnie to get hurt, in the process. I mean, maybe Bonnie can stand in front of Puny-chan and block Team Flare, and then maybe maybe that will cause Puny-chan to turn into 10% form. But yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily want Bonnie to get hurt. I know it's just a cartoon character, an anime character or whatever, and it's just fictional or whatever, but I don't necessarily mean that I hope that Bonnie gets hurt, but if Bonnie gets hurt. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it. It's going to be an action-packed episode. I don't know if there's really any other speculation that I can see, other than I really hope that Team Flare really notice Ash and company for having Puny-chan, and I really want them to be the target of Team Flare. I want Lysander to be like, who are these people and what are they doing with this Puny-chan? Or, well, they wouldn't call it Puny-chan, but what are they doing with the Zygarde core, the Z core? And of course, I want Team Flare to, of course, talk to Alon in a future episode where he sends Alon afterwards, At least I don't because Alon's voice actor isn't listed, I don't expect Alon to have a voice role, but I expect Lysander to be like talking with the Rosic or someone or whatever and be like, we need to get that particular individual on this particular case in reference to Alon, and then hopefully that'll get Alon. But outside of that, I think that's pretty much it. I can't wait for this episode. It's going to be action packed. Of course, I will do a review on that, and hopefully everything will be taken care of. You know, I don't know if there will be anything on Christmas that I'm not sure I'll be able to do anything on Christmas Day, but potentially the 26th. I think 26th there will be a lot of information outside of the episode preview, but anyway, that's pretty much it. So before I finish this particular video, there's a few other things that I want to discuss. First off, there was a movie note about Heatran up on the official Pokemon movie website or whatever, and they mentioned Heat Burst. Um, Now, I think this might be a potential reference to a form change. I only mention this because it is something honestly unique that we don't know about Volcanion already, because one of the moderators on Cerebi forums who can translate Japanese mentioned that it said heat burst, and so far that doesn't really mean anything. There's no move that has heat burst. Volcanion's ability is water absorb, and it can't be referencing steam eruption because I don't think it's called heat burst in Japanese. I think it's just steam eruption, or it translates into steam eruption. I don't know what the actual transliteration pronunciation is or whatever it is. But yeah, so I don't know what it means. I think it potentially means that Heatran, something's going to happen to it, whether it's a mega evolution or a massive form change or even some sort of evolution of some kind or something, or mega evolution. Something, I think that's what it's referencing to. At least I think so. Otherwise, I don't know what it would mean other than potentially about its role within the movie. I think Heat Burst definitely implies that it is basically probably going to use as an energy source of some kind. Probably to be used as a weapon or to power up a weapon that destroys the ecosystem, and that's how we get Zygarde core or Zygarde complete within the actual movie. Okay, so then of course there's that movie trailer that came out, and of course, all we saw was all the legendary and mythical Pokemon of this particular generation. We saw Zygarde complete, and of course we saw Volcanion. Volcanion looks really nice. Of course, and then of course it separates its hands. You know how it has a hoop. Anyway, it separated its hands and then used Steam Eruption, and of course, after that we got this Pikachu hitting a machine. So I really think that machine that we saw might indeed be relating to the movie, and I think it is hinting that Volcanion is going to be used as a power source for this machine that's just going to completely destroy everything. It's going to basically be a probably movie version of the Ultimate Weapon, although I think the Ultimate Weapon, if it's going to appear at all, is going to be saved for the Team Flare arc that's happening within the main anime series. But I don't know, maybe it'll happen here, but I'm not really sure. But I do think Volcanion is going to be used as a power source or whatever. And I do have to make a note here that it is possible Zygarde may not actually appear in the movie. It seems likely it is going to appear in the movie, but it also might be possible that Volcania might have a separate movie. But Tomioka, who is like the head writer and a very good writer who writes a lot of good episodes, although there are some people who don't like some of his episodes, but he did write the Hoopa movie, so it's possible we'll get something really nice, and it might be relating to Zygarde. So I guess we'll have to see. So, and then there's one last thing that I want to discuss, and of course, I made a Twitter note about this, and apparently there's a Treta anime tie-in that specifically says that Eevee is going to evolve relatively soon. I don't know if this was what, I think it was TV-kun that said that there was a Pokemon that's going to evolve soon. I don't know if that's supposed to come out the 26th. I don't know if that's still in referencing potentially Noibat evolving, or it's referencing Eevee evolving, but I did suggest that maybe we can see some scenes of Eevee evolving in the upcoming episodes preview that we're probably going to get. The one thing that I am kind of disappointed about in relating to the showcase is that while Eevee could have failed, what would have really been nice is if after that Eevee used like baby doll eyes or charm or some sort of fairy type, because Eevee's going to need a fairy type to evolve into Sylveon. Although of course, knowing how it usually is, they might just ignore that. But they've been really good about those specific things, even though they may do it differently, like Slugoo evolving using Rain Dance, even though it can't do that in the game. So it might be something like that. Maybe it uses like Charm or baby doll eyes, and then immediately evolves and has different moves. Maybe that'll be what it is. But anyway, this wasn't at least this wasn't as long as my other videos. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it that I have all to say about everything right now. Anything else is gonna probably have to wait until Christmas Eve, December 24th. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Dustin Benzel, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.